Hey, everybody watching the recording. Grant Meglis here. Feel free to reach out to me after you watch the recording. We'll wait on Brandon to start.
I'm waiting to see if there's. Oh. Okay, I might as well just start now. I'll just add people as they go along. So my name's Brandon. I work for the Career Center, and right now I have with me special guest, Mr. Grant Meglis, and I'll let you introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Yeah, my name is Grant Meglis. I was a class of 2014, Hamilton graduate, and I majored in math and philosophy. I'll go more into details about my history at Hamilton and then career afterwards. But Brendan, I don't know if you want to give any more of the introduction.
Um, okay, so just to be clear, in terms of the meeting, this meeting is being recorded. You're free to ask questions once the meeting is done per se, or like when all the questions have been asked. So feel free to ask after that. And I would please ask that you mute yourselves and please be respectful of everyone else in the space. So I'll get started right away with the first question. Firstly, please, Mr. Meglis, tell us more about your position and how did school prepare you for this position?
Sure thing. I'll try to answer the question, but if you want to ask a follow-up question to any of the sections, then let me know. So my current position is half sales and half customer success for a software solution. The basics are that I'm more technical on the sales side. So making sure to support the actual salespeople with demos and how our product actually works in order to win new deals and ultimately to find customers that fit what we're trying to sell. And I'm also supporting our teams on the customer success side, which is basically like client management who are using the software. And so that's the basic summary of my position at the company called Inspectorio. And how did Hamilton and actually mathematics get me there? So I majored in math and philosophy, and there's a lot of logic that's involved in the day-to-day jobs and problems of what we do like at Inspectorio. So so I think that's the main thing it's hard to sell, but it's easy to actually be to win in your career if you keep that in mind, that you have this practice of working with logic and then apply that to problems in your day-to-day life. So it could be that you need to be adaptable and learn a new software tool to be useful in a particular industry, or to support with software testing or coding or something like that. But ultimately, you can boil down a lot of these problems to inputs and outputs where you're trying to figure out the function in the middle. So just rest assured that you have so much more of a leg up compared to other individuals in the market. And then you can really rely on that logic, understanding, and practice to lead you forward wherever you go. it doesn't make sense for one industry or another. It makes sense for many. So Brandon, should I go into any depth or
Oh, yeah.
follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question.
So you said your job was like technical. Do you mean like in terms of like are you doing the actual, are you doing math?
Good question. I think I am doing math, but not in the way that you might think. And also I do math when I'm in a call with an individual who's looking to buy our product. Not necessarily the technical folks are doing math. I think that if you have communication skills, you can use the power of mathematics or logics or proofs to drill down into what are your actual pain points. So you told me that, okay, you told me about X. And so, but I want to explore about Y, because Y might be contributing to X. Kind of understanding the problem with variables, understanding that with a proof is how I can use math, not necessarily technically, but I'll define what I mean by technical, and it's a good call out. This ranges from being the product expert in this somewhat complex and industry software that plays a specific purpose. It's having an understanding of how to set that up, and also how that system talks to other systems, which requires what we call data integration, basically just mapping one data point to another data point and sending it along, maybe putting some formulas in there to multiply by 12 or to do a check to see if this checks and then send it over. That's what I mean by technical, is understanding that product and being able to deliver it in a demo, and also some other things there. But does that answer your question?
Yes,
you,
it
Tom.
does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My next question, I think you kind of already answered this, but in terms of like what skills or knowledge did you learn throughout the program that you found most useful in your career, like through math, basically?
Yeah. I remember fondly working in the first floor of CJ and working through like 301 or like 300 and 400 level courses. Ultimately, I was a very average student, slightly below average GPA wise. I had some extracurricular activities, and what I remember fondly is less about the knowledge that I learned and more about the teamwork and working through problems with other people. And maybe other people, it ranges. I'm not saying that this is the right way for everyone. You might grasp a hold of something having to do with knot theory. I think about knots all the time. So strange. I don't know if BDiant still offers that, but I think about that all the time when I see like overlaps and how to color. And I don't know how that actually affects my daily life, but the fact that I think about it so often means it is influencing me. But to answer your question, it's more about how to work with other individuals who are trying to solve a similar problem. Because ultimately, when you go out into the workforce, you're not going to be expected to know answers to the problems, which, and these are all new problems as well. You know, in mathematics, most of the things that you're learning has a right answer, or at least you're supposed to be able to find it, and it's already been found. But it's way more on the scientific side in the career. I mean, in most career positions, most of the problems that companies are solving are somewhat new. More and more, we're able to automate things that we know the answer to all the time. And you're not going to be well positioned to join a cog in the machine. You're going to be joining a position most likely that needs to think about how to frame a new problem, how to understand it, then how to solve it in the best way possible, being efficient, and then working with other individuals. So no matter what, the common thread throughout that is working with those other individuals, not only learning the knowledge, getting practice with proofs and understanding that logic stuff, but being able to work with a group. So that's what I would say I draw upon mostly from the math program.
Yeah, Chanwa has a question.
Oh, Professor Bedian, I think he retired after you graduated. But Professor Sinaceros kind of like does his thing. He's a topologist. He's not a theorist. He teaches a senior seminar on it.
Oh, excellent. We got to keep that going. Professor Bedian literally wrote the book. So that's good. I'll do one more caveat as well. I think in answering the same question, in my position, I I rely more on communication and solving complex problems, but not getting down to the detailed coding level. I still need to understand a lot of the inputs and outputs. But if you're interested in getting down to that detailed level of whether you're creating a physical machine or a software machine, or like something having to do with healthcare and getting down to the very details of how our bodies work, if you're really interested in that, then you will rely more on mathematical concepts that you learn, like matrices and somewhat of number theory, but definitely with linear algebra. I mean, if you've taken comp sci courses, you do use math in that way. However, I will say that more and more, it's like there are these layers of complexity or abstraction basically in software. And if you want to go down to the very bottom, yeah, you're going to need to work on those with the matrices with linear algebra. But more and more, there are actual companies who abstract one level up and say, hey, I'm giving you blocks to play with, instead of you having to write all the lines of code just to do like one thing. Here, I'm just going to give you the blocks. And someone like me, who's not an engineer, I can play around with the blocks and I can accomplish something that is kind of technical. It's just one level up from the base level of like assembly. And then, so there are multiple layers there. And so I don't want to dissuade you from that if you're interested, but also rest on your communication skills, your written skills, oral presentation. I rely on those every single day, as in addition to that practice about how logic works, inputs, outputs. So that was my caveat.
And thank you for that. John, what's your question?
What was your favorite math class in Hamilton?
Yeah, I think, well, it is probably knot theory, because it was so whimsical and fun. But it made sense because it's somewhat of a field that doesn't have a lot of depth. I shouldn't say that. It does have a lot of depth, and that's why there's a math class on it. Maybe there's not a lot of attention on it. So with linear algebra, number theory, these types of things have a lot of people looking at the problem. So you got to pack in all of that history within one semester, and you feel like you're behind and you're on a roller coaster. However, with knot theory, we went at a slower pace, reading a somewhat small book rather than like 2 large textbooks or something. So I felt like I was going at the right pace. That's why it was my favorite. It was somewhat whimsical, but it still was giving me practice of, hey, you have this problem. Here are the theorems about it. Here's what you know. Here, try to solve this out. And so you're still getting practice. And that's my answer.
Oh, did you take linear optimization with Professor Coburn?
No, I never did. I probably would like it, but
she's
yeah.
she's offering it next semester, and I was wondering if you would think I should take.
No, I can't speak to that, unfortunately. I know a lot of people who did take it, and generally they had good things to say. I don't remember anything particularly bad. You can't go wrong with a choice in the math department. And I would also factor in, if you enjoy working with a professor, it does matter. You're spending a lot of time with them. So look at the content, look at the professor, make the best decision you can, but you really can't go wrong, because even at other courses outside of mathematics, I was really pleased at what I learned. I had no idea. So I also majored in philosophy. I don't know if people have taken philosophy courses, but some of the higher level courses, it's just, yeah, thumbs up. Some of the higher level courses, it's just you and 4 other people and the professor. You're just like ducking around, and you're just like messing around. Like, hey, I was thinking about this. And then you just chat about that for an hour and a half. It's very interesting and engaging in those courses, and in a way that I wouldn't expect when I read the syllabus. We're going to be covering this. It's like, okay, whatever. Then we actually do it, and it is interesting. So that's my answer about linear optimization.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, it was pretty useful, because right now I'm considering majoring in math, and I wasn't really sure how to go about that. But in terms of actually, this is a little bit off topic, but in terms of math professors, who were your favorite math professors when you were in college?
I think my favorites were Professor Kantrowitz and
Love him.
Professor Bedian. Yes.
I love Catcher. I love Catcher.
Yeah.
He's so
Professor
animated.
Yeah. So he was my advisor. And so I spent a lot of time with him. And then, but there were others that I didn't have any particularly bad experiences. But then again, in remembering, maybe I'm covering those up. So, but I don't remember any hard experiences where I go in crying. I mean, that was like high school math, where I got a D- in trigonometry or something on the second test. And I was literally crying after walking away from like, it's not meant to be. I can't do it. I can't do math. And then I stuck with it. But I was able to stumble my way through no matter the quality of the professor at Hamilton, luckily.
That's really great to hear. What are you most proud of from your school experience? Like, what would you say is your most proud achievement ever from graduating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm most proud of the relationships that I built. It's 50-50, of course, with you and another individual, but I showed up and in many cases kept those relationships moving forward. That's what I remember fondly. You probably hear this all the time from people in the workforce. You're like, yeah, I don't remember jack about school and haha, whatever. But it is true. Like I really am, I'm carrying forward the relationships, not necessarily the knowledge in all areas. There are some things that have been helpful, but very quickly what I've found is that the world moves so fast that things change in an instant and new information comes along and subverts the whole narrative of whatever you're talking about. If you're talking about some political theory or economic theory or whatever, or psychological or even mathematical theory or physics. There was news recently about relativity. I think I might be getting that wrong, but it's calling into question everything that you've ever learned that might be fact. So it gave me that adaptability and open-mindedness to be like, all right, let's see what the scientists come up with and let's see what people are saying. Let's try to incorporate that into my worldview. But what I know is rock solid are the relationships with individuals. So that's why I've carried that forward and why I'm proud of it.
That's really great to hear. Okay, what's something that you didn't like? Actually, yeah, go ahead.
What is your favorite Hamilton memory?
Oh man, I can't just think of just one. It's like, I think if I had to pick one and only one, and I'm not locked into it necessarily, but if you had a gun to my head and I had to just answer in the next 5 seconds, then I would say when I was an orientation leader for sophomore, junior, senior year. So if I'm not familiar, when you're joining as a freshman, your parents are driving you up the hill, and all the orientation leaders are up on the Martin's Way or wherever, like with the signs and everything. And that was just so fun because that was the tone that we wanted to set throughout the rest of the year. Now, obviously, when you get down to it, there's serious work that you need to do. There's serious problems in the world that we need to solve, but let's have a good time at least while we're here. We don't have to live in misery for 4 years, beating ourselves to a pulp and grinding away. Let's build relationships. Let's have fun. Go take a weekend off or whatever. So that's why I remember that fondly. And just simply the memory of holding up a sign and saying ice cream for breakfast, no parents, like that kind of vibe that we want to say, hey, you're allowed to be crazy here because we're so crazy. So bring your crazy ideas, bring your crazy identity. We don't care. Just bring it and let's put it all together and let's see what happens. That's what I would say one of my favorite memories is.
A follow-up question to that, actually. What's your least favorite memory?
Least favorite memory. I think, we had controversy. I think controversies that affect things outside of the Hamilton bubble. Although I don't like now I see the Hamilton bubble as good and bad. When you're in the bubble, you're very much in the bubble. And so when something pops out and it's like someone, there's for example, a death on campus, or someone seriously hurt or has to leave or something like that breaks me out of the spell of Hamilton. And it is important to go through that, and you have to reconcile, and you have to think, how could this happen? Like, this is a part of the world, loss and tragedy are part of the world, and we have to work through that. And I don't think that anyone should be like separated from that, but that was hard when you're still developing, when you're learning. Your frontal cortex doesn't develop till you're like 25 years old or something. You're still growing, even if you're legally an adult. So those types of experiences are hard. After walking my way through that problem, it's probably a good thing that we went through those things, those difficult times that, again, broke us out of the Hamilton bubble, said, hey, this is some real stuff going on. But that was my answer. So I'll have to stick with it for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's one of those things that sometimes you're in the bubble so much, you kind of forget that reality, it's kind of its own thing almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. How did your experience at school help you find your position after graduation? I think I already asked this, didn't I?
Yeah,
But
I answered kind of generally with regard to logic. I could talk about another way that I went about doing that, if that would be interesting, but I can do that after Tonwa asks the question,
okay.
or I can do that now, whichever.
No, you're
It's
fine.
kind of
I was just making sure because like it sounded a little bit like I'd asked this question before. I was just making sure. Um, Actually, I just want to ask you this. How did you know that you wanted to study math? Like, because you were talking about how like, oh, you had like a D minus on like a test. Most people normally would just be given. I know I would give up. I'd just be like, no, this is not for me. Like, how did you find out that this is what I really wanted to do?
I think it was a combination between being good enough to be on the bottom edge of the cool, smart kids, if you will, and also being interested in it because it was cool. And so both of those things at the end of high school brought me towards math. And I'd already taken calculus, and I'd done reasonably well on the AP exam. And I was kind of feeling confident, like, yeah, this can be kind of my thing. I'm doing well enough. It's like if you're familiar with Naval Ravikant, he has a bunch of ideas, but one of them is getting to be 70%, 75% good in an area, and then another area. Not necessarily getting to 100%. You don't have to get to the top. Just get to 75% and then pick something else random that you're interested in. That combination is unique enough. Even if you're in the 75 percentile, something like that, 75th percentile, you're still going to be good enough and unique enough to succeed. So I found it interesting. I had taken calculus courses and absorbed things from other individuals who were way smarter. And then I just started taking courses that were interesting in math. And then when I was looking to major, it was math and philosophy were near the top based on the courses that I had already taken. So I decided, hey, let's just go for it. Seems like an interesting combination.
So you basically just kind of like took a bunch of courses after taking math to explore and find out like things that you wanted to do essentially in combination with math.
Can you say that again?
Now, I just want to make sure like I heard this correctly. Like you basically took courses in math, right? And you took calculus first, and then you took a bunch of courses in math to kind of like figure out what you wanted to major in.
Yeah. And I think I can frame this another way too. So I took courses occasionally thinking, hey, I'm interested. I want to keep up that unique factor of being that 75th percentile. And then I realized that I don't have to be the smartest one. I can just take the courses, show up, do well, learn. I don't have to fight to be the number one person. Just do well and learn and be interested. And then I can also add in philosophy and just be that 75th percentile there or something. So I wasn't seeking perfection, but I was interested in the content enough, and I was good enough so that I'm not letting myself down. Like I'm, failing every test and exam and everything. I was doing well enough to keep it going. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there like anyone you want me to say hi to? I'll be like, oh, Grant Meglis says hello.
I mean, Professor Kantrowitz, that would be nice to say hi. There are many others, but I went to yeah, and like if you see Dick Tantillo around as well, he's a very talkative guy. He's a lot of fun, and also Angel. Also, if you frequent the diner, but yeah, just a couple. Thanks for offering.
Hmm. Okay, this
I
is a
can.
little.
Oh, if you
No, no,
don't
no.
have more, if you ever run out of questions, I can start talking about some other relevant topic too. But
Yeah, sure.
keep
Like,
going.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm still thinking about good questions to ask.
Sure. Okay. Well, while y'all think of questions, something that I did right after graduation is, and this was not my own, solely my own autonomy, but my grandmother gave me a monetary gift. She said, "Congratulations on graduation. You know, you're getting this amount. You can use it to travel, to buy a car, or to rent an apartment." And so I was very clearly interested in traveling. And that was actually the best investment. If I had invested that same amount in the stock market, if I had invested it in real estate or in a car, I still would not have been satisfied. I think the returns were much higher with traveling than in those other areas. So I went to Northern Europe and bopped around a little bit and really discovered a lot about the world, about how to interact with people, how to be autonomous, how to be yourself, how to figure yourself out in a new area. And then I also visited China for 5 weeks. I did not speak a lick of Mandarin or Cantonese, but I survived for 5 weeks and you really figure it out. So there were a lot of things that I learned about other cultures, how you interact with other cultures, how do you interact with other individuals, and also what interests you. It's a great way to just put yourself out there, separate yourself, and ask yourself, what do you want to do today? Because you don't have any obligation or anything. So if you can take a gap, even a couple of weeks before starting work, I really highly recommend it. I recommend to go to a different country, a little bit outside of your comfort zone, very much outside of your comfort zone if you can manage it. But I found it a very great experience. And I also realized that I was looking to find my first job, but I didn't really know what it was because I had this experience. So in graduation, I didn't have a job lined up. I very clearly knew I was going to travel a little bit, about 4 or 5 months. I had also had a side job and I was working in like as a waiter to like prepare for that. But anyway, the important thing is I got back realizing that I wouldn't find my dream job at step one. I just need to break into something, build up the building blocks based on my experience with math, philosophy, the various groups, the relationships at Hamilton, build up that work experience with really anything that's marginally related to what I wanted to do, which was software. I knew I wanted to work with software, but that's it. So got back from traveling, I applied to 30 different jobs, which may not seem like a lot, but that's like filling out the whole job application, filling in all the fields, all the histories, researching, writing a cover letter for 30 times. And on the 30th one, I got one interview, and I'm pretty sure that the hiring manager only hired me because she was doing some part of her job that she didn't want to do. And the only reason that she hired me was because of my philosophy degree. She knew that I could speak and give these user trainings on software. She's like, I don't want to do these user training. I got to drive 45 minutes, got to show up to the client site. I got to lead this training for 2 hours. That's taking me away from my family, my kids. And meanwhile, I'm like 22. I'm like, I'll do that. I'll do that. Where do you want me to go? Like, let's throw me in. Let's do it. So that energy. And also I basically taught myself SQL, which is a querying language, basically a couple of weeks before the interview to fool the technical interviewer. Hey, can you write this query request for XYZ? And then I wrote it on the board and that was it. It's like, okay, cool. So the other portion of that is like you get lucky, but the other portion of that is just pay attention to what people are asking for with regard to jobs and summer internships, and solve this like a math problem, solve this like a logic problem, list out all the requirements and then put it into a table, figure out what requirements are most common, then learn Excel. If everyone asks for Excel, learn Excel. If everyone asks for like speaking skills, then practice speaking, record yourself, listen to yourself talk, and then improve. So treat it like it's going to be a significant part of your life. That's what I'd recommend with regard to traveling, being open-minded, and then also giving yourself time to find that gig of what you want to do. Now, that's not to. I'm not mentioning if you want to start your own company, which I encourage. If you're entrepreneurial, find a problem, solve it. If people are willing to pay, that's fantastic. Or pay with their eyes. There are many ways that you pay. Go for it. This is the time to take a risk, including to travel. So that's my recommendation.
Do you have advice for learning SQL?
Thing is, I don't remember now because I stayed at that job for 1 year and then I went to another job that didn't use SQL. YouTube, probably. YouTube, you can learn literally anything. Google it, YouTube. Like, honestly, even today, when we come across a new concept, I will just research the topic like I would anything else. I would watch a video, read an article. Better to have multiple sources, but it's not necessary to learn the fundamentals by paying. I don't think so. That's the fundamentals of SQL and other languages have passed the paywall. You don't need to pay someone to teach you unless you know for sure, like, oh, you need advanced knowledge of XYZ. It's like, all right, well, you might want to invest that. It might be worth the cost. Who knows? But I would say just start researching and then also go right to the source. Look on Glassdoor or whatever other aggregators are for job hiring. And what questions do they ask? Like search SQL of all the questions of all the companies that you might be interested in. And many companies that you will never have heard of, which are just businesses selling to businesses that never actually reach the consumer's eyes. And you might be working for a business to business software solution and it might be really cool. So be open-minded as well about that. But that's my recommendation. Research, YouTube, free things first. And then as you get practice, as you do interviews, you'll fail. And then eventually maybe you'll learn through those failures.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, so right now I'm gonna ask you like 2 more questions and then anyone else can ask their own question. First of all, I mean, this is gonna be a little bit of a silly question, but I think we can all answer this. How was the food in your opinion? How was the food on campus?
How was the food when I was
Uh,
there?
When you were there, yeah. Like, how did you think it went? Because I think it's crap. I won't even lie. I think it's bad. Depending on where you go, but most of the time it's
It depends.
not that good.
Well,
How do
I'll
you
give
think
my
the
answer,
food was?
and then we can open the floor if this is a hot topic. Commons is like very standard. It's fairly expensive if you have to pay for it. It's like for like $14 a meal or something. It's like that's pretty crazy, but it is buffet technically. There are some things that are gems in the rough, and I'm going on record by this. So I'm not going to like badmouth, Commons. I ate at Commons for 4 years and I'm still standing here. But you really need to go for the good stuff. You got to figure out, okay, like the sandwich makers, like who understands you. Okay, the hot meals are like in the breakfast. If someone makes you fresh eggs, like that's really good if you can wait for it. But there's always your standard, like grab a slice of pizza. You know what you're going to get, and it's quick. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it's high class, but it's there. I'd say that MacEwan is more hit or miss, but the hits are higher. They're more experimental. In MacEwan, they use seemingly fresher ingredients, although it's like the same company or something. So I don't know why it's so different. But anyway, they do good stuff there. The portion sizes I remember being kind of smaller, and it's a different vibe as well. The types of people who are eating at MacEwan versus the types of people eating at Commons. And then also, if you really want to get out there, like Opus food, that would be like the hipsterist thing to do. I don't even know if hipster is a word anymore. I'm dating myself. But like if you wanted to like buy a $5 like hummus fresh sandwich, panini pressed, like it's delicious, but you're also spending like $5 or $6 on a sandwich. but then you get to be super cool and have this delicious food. So the highs are there, and then the rest is fairly standard. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Did you know about Opus?
What?
There's no more Opus.
I think I heard that.
So
Yeah.
sad.
I don't know. Was that recent?
Like last year is the first year we didn't have Opus.
That's what I thought. It was before I was here.
The bummer. Oh, but of course I forget I'm forgetting a couple more though. The diner is great for late night, obviously. When you had a couple and you need to have a sausage and bacon mess. I don't know if everything's the same there, but I still see it's on campus, so it's not like they can just get rid of it. For lunch, it's like pretty good. We also were the last year when they started cracking down on double swipes. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but it's like you swipe at the diner at 5 p.m. You get like a full sandwich, and then by 8 p.m. you basically walk into Commons and you say, "Oh, I've been here before. I'm a reswipe." And they would try to reswipe you, and it would show that you've already used one of your dinner swipes, but you were technically allowed to go back multiple times if you went to Commons before or something. So that's why you went from diner, and then you took some bagels or stuff to go from Commons. But I don't think that that's possible anymore. And then the last thing is pub. So I'm also somewhat identifying myself there, but sometimes would eat at the pub, more like senior year. But the TCB's sandwich was also just a huge hit. That was a big hit. Turkey, cranberry mayo, TCB, my bacon. And that was all it would always, like 5 minutes, all of the sandwiches will be gone. But so I think the food was similar at pub. It was just a different environment, more exclusive, you could say. I don't know. I didn't love the pub, but I did love the TCBs.
Pub's pizza is really good. That's like the best pizza on campus. As
Which,
far as the pub's pizza, like I don't know, because I've had like McEwen's pizza sucks. Commons pizza is okay. The pub's pizza is really, really good. Like it's a hot take, but it's like top 3 pizzas I've had in a while. And I don't eat pizza that much.
hey, pub does some things right, and the beer is good too at the pub.
I can't have that, unfortunately.
Soon, eventually.
And the last question I have is, if you could do it differently, like what would you advise any upcoming Hamilton student who wants to follow your path?
Yeah. I would still branch out and try many different things, even after you settled into your group, what you think is your group after sophomore year, junior year, and your clubs and your extracurriculars. There's a lot of advantage to trying out things and then realizing that it's not for you. And I wanted to, if I did it differently, I would go back to that energy that you had at the beginning of freshman year, or at the beginning of the year, where all the clubs were like the cooking club and you're like all these different things, chess club. I would want to try way more of those things. And then after a couple of weeks, be able to say, no, I'm not really interested. And that's okay. You just leave and you go try something else. I did settle into certain things. And I think that there's an advantage also for becoming an expert in athletic achievements or whatever, in a sport or in some particular extracurricular, student assembly, whatever it is, try to do more of that. And if you're like, Grant, I'm starting at 0, I literally do school and nothing else. It's like, okay, great. It's really easy for you because all you got to do is select one more thing. Just select from 0 to 1, just do one thing. And then if you hate it, that's okay. Substitute it for something else. And then if you hate that, try something else. And it doesn't have to be organized on campus yet. If you're like, I like Dungeons and Dragons, which also I do play. I can't believe I waited my whole life without playing D&D, but it's a lot of fun. If you want to start that club, just go for it. Just grab like 5 people and let's do it. So I would do more of that and encourage more of those little, not failures, but just learnings about, yeah, I like chess. but I don't really like the organizer, and it wastes my time. So, okay, great, just leave. Like, that's amazing. There's more barriers in what you could say adult life. You got to find the group. That's more like, oh, there's the social thing of like, I don't even know who these individuals are. I've never seen them before. Are they gonna like me? Like that kind of thing. The problems are much smaller at Hamilton. You might have people who you don't exactly vibe with, and that's okay. But it's way easier to fail in that way. So I encourage more of that to find your interests. So that's how I do it differently.
Thank you. Yeah, Tom, I have a question.
What was your thing at Hamilton? What did you do outside of class?
I can talk about, yeah. So I majored in math and philosophy. I was on the rowing team.
I'm
Not
also on the crew team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Fantastic. That was a great experience, for sure. So I identify primarily through like the crew team, and the bonds that you build with those individuals are very tight, just because you're going through pain and agony and trial and tribulation. And some of my fonder memories are through that. So rock on, crew team. I was also in Greek life. And so also, you're spending a lot of time with these individuals, going through experiences together. I did join student assembly in my senior year. So that was interesting to learn about that process. And also did random things like I had skied Nordic skiing in high school. So I did skiing for a couple of semesters in the winter. And that was fun. It was just a couple of people who were interested, and we drove through the snow in upstate New York to go ski. And then like rock climbing and various things. And then I just like talking to people and philosophizing basically about whatever is going on. So I liked having one-on-one conversations with individuals, and just like, hey, just not anything that you want to grab a bite or a coffee and like, let's chat about what was going on in class, or hey, this thing on the news, let's talk about it. That was also interesting. But I think those were the things that took a majority of my time.
Have you seen the new boathouse?
No, but I donated for it. So damn it, I hope it's there. I donated like $50, but every bit counts. Yeah.
You should, okay, if you, in the spring, there will probably be like an alumni row. You should come if you can.
Yeah,
it was fun last time.
Okay, I'll find a way. I like to go to the reunions, but I know that there's an event there. But yeah, let's take a look at the calendars. I am on the email list and everything, so I'm aware of everything that's going on. But I'm so happy at that. The Erie Canal there's a lot of memories there in the water. So thanks, Tom.
All right, Mr. Melville, thank you so much for sacrificing your time today and talking to us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to leave the floor for questions right now, and I'll end it in about 5 to 10 minutes if no one asks any questions.
Feel free to ask.
Oh, you still have you're still drinking out of Gatorade sport bottle?
Yeah. I have a lot of bottles. I don't know if I had this bottle in exactly, maybe it's a newer version, but yes, I learned a lot of things. I drink a lot of water. I have like 2 full water bottles and a LaCroix that I already finished. So if you're a fan of that, but I drink a lot of water. I like coffee, but I'm actually located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I work remotely, and that's something that we did through the pandemic. We were already a global company, and so it made sense. I was already on fairly early morning, like 7 a.m. calls and with Asia time zones, and then also in the evening. So it made more sense to transition here. But that means that my wife, who I actually also met at Hamilton, actually before student assembly, my senior year. So she's a class of 2015. She finished dental school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. where we had moved for her schooling. And then she got an opportunity here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I know nothing about the Southwest. I just knew Breaking Bad. That's it. And we've really discovered this oasis here. It's like there's a lot of great food, great people. Everyone's super nice, access to nature. So you don't have to be tied to a specific city. I know the dynamics of remote work are changing a little bit, where everyone was remote and then it's kind of swinging back a little bit. But I would recommend, by the way, I know I transitioned from drinking a lot of water because we're high at elevation, very high elevation here in Santa Fe, which is why I thought of it. But I do recommend looking for an on-site position after school. I think there's a lot of benefits. I worked for about 4 or 5 years, basically, in an office, and I was only able to transition better to remote work because I had that foundation of understanding what office life is like. So that's what I'd recommend. And also drink more water.
I'm from I grew up in the American Southwest.
Sweet.
What do you think of In-N-Out?
Are you comparing it to Blake's Lotaburger?
I've never been to Blake's Lotto Burger.
Oh, okay. So Southwest, like Arizona, like where's Southwest, if you don't mind?
Vegas.
Vegas, got it. Yeah, In-N-Out's California, as far east as Colorado Springs. I had one. I love In-N-Out for what it is. If you compare it to McDonald's, that's what it is. It's like $3 for a burger or something. You're not paying like $16 for a high quality burger, whatever that you expect is good. It's $3, but the quality is consistently on the high end of that $3. So I'm a big fan, and yeah, I recommend the animal style for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad people misunderstand why West Coasters rave about In-N-Out, right? If there's like a cost function, like cost goodness function, like here's the Gordon Ramsay steak, I'll pay a lot of money for that. Here's the McDonald's, but it's like In-N-Out's like so far above that, right? It's not the best, but it's good for the value.
I agree. I made the mistake of overhyping it when I took my wife to taste it for the first time. And she was expecting that $16 burger. And that's my fault. I overhyped it so much that it's like, oh, just the quality and the sauce and the bun and the fries. It's like, well, I can get 3 of these and I would enjoy every single bite for your one burger that you got. So yeah, well, fight the good fight.
I have one last question, and that's
Yeah.
what was your favorite seat to row?
Favorite seat, probably 4. Although I jumped around a little bit. I was a port. So sometimes I'm like a hair under 6 feet. So I'm not particularly tall, but I'm very stocky. So I was like, I can pull really hard, but I don't have the length as others do. And so I would be in 2 seats sometimes I would be 4, and then sometimes I would be stroke, and I was fine with stroke, but I had to think a lot, and I overthought stroke too much rather than, the people who just chill and they're just like, I'm doing my thing. I'm not like, oh, am I off like a quarter of a beat? I feel everything, so I really liked a 4 in the 8, because I didn't have to worry too much about the position of the oar. And also I could just like yank on it more, go with the flow more rather than worrying about position. So how about you?
I like bow seat. Just
A lot of fun, a lot
Yeah.
of authority.
Yeah, I like I kind of don't trust anyone else to be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Great experience. Some individuals kept growing after in clubs in their cities. I did not, but that was just based on where I was located. It was hard to find a club, but I do think of it fondly. So sure to put in all the effort. What year are you?
Oh, I'm a senior.
All right. Well, enjoy. This is for having fun.
Okay. Just remember this. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna stop the recording right now.
Yeah, actually, before you do that,
Mhm.
I'll blast my LinkedIn into the chat. So that's probably the best way to reach me. The second best way is my email, which I'll also put in the chat. My email first. So my email is the best way to reach me. And then LinkedIn is second best way. I do check my personal email pretty much every day. So if I don't reply to you, it's because I'm thinking of a response, basically. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. We can also set up the one-on-one conversation. If you want to just set 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour aside, if I have time in advance to schedule, then we can make it happen. So
Okay, great. I just saw it right now. Okay, so that is it in the chat right here. Okay,
yes, indeed.
all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Magos.
Thanks all for listening to me.